Amber Kenyon here with Gateway Research Organization. So today it's my privilege to show you around our canola trials. Here at this canola site we have 9 different trials with 6 different industry partners. And it's been really exciting to work with everybody doing these. So the goal of the canola performance trials is to evaluate currently available commercial canola seed varieties that are available to farmers. Yield differences should be only due to genetic differences, not due to high weed pressure, high disease, or insect pressure. We have a standard and a straight cut variety trial with 18 entries in each of them. And this year our trial has 5 Liberty Link and 13 Roundup Ready canola varieties. Canola performance trials represent the next generation in variety evaluation for Western Canadian canola growers. The 2020 program was funded by the 3 prairie canola groups, Alberta Canola Producers Commission, Saskatchewan Canola Development Commission, SaskCanola, and the Manitoba Canola Growers Association, with contributions from the BC Grain Producers Association. So if you're interested more in what's happening on the canola trials here at Gateway Research Organization, I recommend you just keep an eye on our social media channels. We have an AGM coming up in the next little bit, and you can receive a copy of our annual report when you attend that.
For 2020 Cut the Crop Tour, today I am at the trial site which we are working first time with a company out of Idaho. And this trial is about comparing GoTech phosphorus with the monoammonium phosphorus. As a simple small trial, we are working first time and looking at the 2 crops, canola and wheat. For the product information, I have a clip from Mike Hill. He is Innovation Manager for the Native Earth Company, and the clip will follow.
Tough soils make it hard for crops to access fertilizer throughout the growing season. Keep up with crop demand by using GoTech, which stands for Granular Optimization Technology. GoTech 123905 provides not only sustained nitrogen, phosphorus, and sulfur for the plant uptake, but it also is fortified with zinc, manganese, and copper to generate an impactful micronutrient distribution in the field. GoTech fertilizer granulars provide a superabsorbent ion exchange matrix to increase nutrient cycling between soil and the plant. This improves the availability of plant food by promoting a superior root zone nutrient distribution and reduced soil tie-up and atmospheric loss, and aids in the steady flow of plant accessible nutrients through the peak uptake periods. GoTech 123905 may be used at lower rates, beginning at 30% less than conventional fertilizer blends, to achieve superior fertilizer utilization. With more nutrients ended up in the plant, healthier crops can grow to a higher yield potential. On average, small grains grown at reduced fertilizer rates with granular optimization technology showed an 8% increase in yield. Worry less about nutrient tie-up and speak with one of our qualified crop consultants to find out how GoTech can strengthen your nutrient program.
For the Cut the Crop 2020, we are at our liming trial site. In this site we are working with Greymont. I have Herman with me from Greymont, and this trial has been funded by Alberta Agriculture through CAP program for the 3-year study. I'll let Herman talk about what this trial is about. So continue, Herman.
Yes, thank you, Sandeep. My name is Herman Simons. I'm here on behalf of Greymont, Alberta. And we're doing a couple of trials here. Like the one is on clubroot by itself. The other one is on the soil pH and how we modify it and potential impact on crop yield. There's a little bit of background with regards to what we're doing here. So a couple of years ago, there's been some studies done at the U of A with regards to clubroot, and they were researching the impact of using lime, modifying soil pH, and see what kind of impact that had on clubroot and clubroot disease by itself. And Nicole Fox did some work on that, and Brittany Henning did some work on that. And both those researchers, it was quite clear that the use of lime, whether lime products, and then you have hydrated lime in the one case and zero grind lime is on another case, had an impact on modifying the soil pH, and there seemed to have been a correlation with the soil pH and how the disease itself expressed itself. So what we're doing from there, what we learned from there, is that there's obviously a difference between hydrated lime and zero grind lime. So what we're trying to find out here is there a combination of the two different products that actually would be a better basis for use as far as managing the clubroot disease, first of all. So, and that's the site that we are at here. And what we have done here, the way we've designed this trial, is that we actually look at the different impacts of using the different products, either being hydrated lime, 100% or zero grind lime, to bring up the soil pH to a pH of 7.2 to 7.5. That's kind of the range that we're looking for. And then also using a combination of those two products as to see if there is a difference in impact, or can we actually see that potentially, if it is a 50-50 mix, that it would have a good impact on the clubroot disease, but it would be a cheaper way of actually going about getting the same result. So the interesting part of this is that what we're looking at here is we're seeing a trial that is it's got 100% hydrated lime. It's got a combination of 75% hydrated lime plus 25% zero grind lime. We have a 50-50% between each of those products, a 75-25 with 75 of the zero grind, 25 of the hydrated lime, and 100% zero grind. So just to see, can we find something out? Is there a correlation between the different products and the impact it has on clubroot disease? That's all we're doing here, just seeing how it impacts the clubroot disease. We're not looking at yield at all. Now this trial is a 3-year trial with canola after canola after canola. We know this site has clubroot disease, but if we looked at the volunteer canola coming up, there's definitely evidence of severe clubroot here in this location.
The layout for this trial is seeded in 4 replication, randomized for the 5 treatment we have and the control. So total of 6 treatment. They are replicated 4 times here. In each treatment, on either side we have a buffer plot to nullify that edge effect when we are applying lime. So in that way, when we are taking the reading for the treatment, it's just strictly to that specific treatment where the plot are. What clubroot does is kind of make these gall and choke the root development. So the plant tend to be deprived of all the nutrition, and in the end the impact is shown where there's no pod formation and the plant is kind of dead with no yield and a significant loss of yield. So that's the clubroot.
So if we look at the different treatments, you can see here this is the control plot. On either side we'll have the buffer strip. And then with the control between the buffer, there's very little. But what you see first of all is that, there's definitely some impact of disease on the plants. If you then go over here, and this is the plot here in the middle, about this wide, that has the 100% zero grind. So that's not as reactive as the hydrated lime. So we wouldn't have expected the same kind of results as the hydrated lime. But what we hope that over time we will get an adjustment on it as well. So then, that's a buffer strip over there. So if we go back here again, is a buffer strip, that's the control buffer strip. Then here what we have is the 50-50 between hydrated and zero grind. So here where we are at is this is the 50-50 with the hydrated and zero grind. You can already see a little bit of an impact, but it's not like a lush green crop, but there's definitely seems to be some kind of an impact as far as a healthier plant. Now here we got a strip that has the 75% hydrated and 25% zero grind. So again, it's a little taller as compared to that, and it looks like there's some darker plants in there, but still there's some plants that have been impacted. So it'll be interesting to see if there's a correlation between the health of the plant and the severity of the clubroot as we find that out. So here again, we're starting with a buffer strip on this side, and you can see that it's just almost the same as the control strip. But then here we have the 100% hydrated lime treatment. And quite clearly it's a significantly healthier plant as compared to the other spots. So it'll be interesting to see what the correlation is between the measurement and the severity of the clubroot of the different combinations of treatments, of the combinations of product, and see if we can design, if we can come to a best plan of action in order to, that will allow us a tool that we can use in the toolbox for management of clubroot disease. Because it isn't a fix, but it seems like it isn't a fix. But as far as what we know now so far, it's definitely is a tool that could be used in the management of clubroot disease in canola.
So for our next part of the tour, we are at liming trial, but in this trial we are looking for the crop rotation, the impact of crop rotation and the effect of liming over the year, how that will impact different crops when we are able to increase the pH from 5.7 to 7.2 in this site. So this site was seeded on June 4th and 5th, a little later than what we have expected, or maybe the average for this area. We got delayed about 7 to 10 days because the application of liming did take some process. And we have canola, wheat and peas seeded in a mirror fashion, where we have 6 treatments, and in each treatment on either side has a buffer plot to avoid the edge effect of the treatment. The same pattern was followed for the wheat and peas as is in canola. So in next year we will be able to rotate the crop on the same piece of the treatment, and we will be able to get the result for the overall impact of crop rotation on the yield, as well as the effect of increasing the pH from 5.7 to 7.2.
So yeah, like Sandeep said, we're doing the same treatment here. Like what we normally see with liming is that with liming you want to go somewhere to where the optimum pH is for normal plants, and for each crop it's a little different. Every crop has its own ideal pH, but in general we would say the most accepted range for pH that most grains and plants will grow best here in Western Canada is 6 to 6.5. There's other crops like alfalfa you might want to go to a 7, but and potatoes you probably are a little bit lower on the acid side, but generally speaking 6 to 6.5 is the best pH for growing a crop. So now if you combine that with our first trial where we looked at the clubroot control and you try and push it to a 7.2, you start to wonder, well, is that going to have a negative impact on our yield? So that's why this test here has been designed the way it is, looking at 3 different crops that we normally see as base crops in our crop rotation, like canola being the cash crop. We see a lot of wheat, hard red wheat, and then peas as a potential third crop that we would like to agronomically see included in the crop rotation because of the benefits that it has. So if we then look at, okay, well, if you look at increasing the pH to 7.2, what will that do to the yield? Is that going to be a negative impact? And if it is a negative impact, to what extent? So what we see here is, yes, we are increasing the pH from 5.7 to 7.2. So by itself, we should see a benefit of that because it is higher than it goes into the closer to the beneficial area of the pH. But you know, like, what is the cost impact of that? And so what we want to do in the end is look at the application of the lime and the liming products in the same kind of treatment as we talked earlier, and then look at the cost of it, and then see what that does. Can the increase in yield be sufficient in order to balance off the increase in cost? And if it is close, and we on top of that would get a benefit on the control of the clubroot disease, then now, you know, we have a better understanding of what is possible and how to use that within our crop rotation. And that's what this is about. This is you know, like that whole repeat in the trials, in the increase in pH, and let's have a look at, you know, does it make farmer sense in order to actually go as high with the pH as it does. If it is just for clubroot disease control, you can say it probably is worth our while. We saw some impact of that as well earlier on. But here we'll see, well, what will it do to wheat? What will it do to peas? And of course, depending on what kind of crop rotation you have, you may want to look at other crops for that as well in the future.
So we are on our prairie oat grower funded oat trial here at Westlock. So the objective of this trial was to find a best milling variety suited for central and northern Alberta region, and we have selected 11 different varieties for this trial purpose. And the main goal is to see how the yield will compare between varieties and how the functional attribute like beta-glucan level in the oat will be affected by growing conditions and the location in Alberta. This trial has been funded by Grain Millers of Canada and Prairie Oat Grower Association. Since 2016, we are running this trial at Westlock and in another location in Peace region. For last 4 years, we have seen different environmental conditions, but mostly it's been too wet or ample wet conditions for the growing oat here. The main reason for analyzing beta-glucan level in oat is because of the health regulation. To label any oat variety, it has to be at least 4% or higher beta-glucan content in the oat. So grain millers were not happy with the oat growing in Alberta because the two main variety grown here in Alberta, Morgan and Derby, tend to have less than 4% beta-glucan level. So our objective with this trial was to find the variety which can beat Morgan and for the yield as well as beta-glucan level. So for specific for this site, we have seeded this site on May 12th. Producer applied 90 pounds of ammonia in fall and 26 pounds of actual N, 30 pounds of actual P, 40 pounds of actual K, and 24 pounds of actual S. With the seed in spring, we applied 60 pounds of actual K and 58 pounds of 1152. The site was sprayed for the weed control on June 16 with Curtail M. So AC Morgan was our control for this trial at both locations in central as well as northern Alberta. And in last 4 years, the average yield for Westlock site for AC Morgan was 215 bushel per acre. CS Camden was all close to 210 bushel average for last 4 years. However, CS Camden has an average of 4.4% of beta-glucan content compared to 3.9% beta-glucan in AC Morgan. So next we have a CDC Arborg. It's a new entry which has been included in our trial from 2018, and this is year 3 at Westlock site. And last 2 year average for CDC Arborg has been phenomenal. It yielded 233 bushel compared to 215 of AC Morgan. CDC Arborg tend to have high beta-glucan content as well as a good yield. CDC Endure and CDC Skye has been two new entries in this trial again from 2018 along with the CDC Arborg there, and these two has yielded in last 2 years the best for the yield. They yielded 238 bushel per acre, and their beta-glucan content, especially in CDC Endure, was average around 4.6. So they have a good yield and a good beta-glucan level in our site from last 2 years. CDC Ruffian is a good milling oat for our area. However, the only problem what we have noticed in CDC Ruffian was a low beta-glucan level compared to the Morgan. Overall, for 4-year yield, it was same as Morgan for 217 bushel per acre. Next variety we have is CDC Seabiscuit. CDC Seabiscuit tend to yield quite high in Westlock area. Only problem it has shown over the past is it tend to lodge a little bit. Especially in 2020, this year, we are not seeing oat as high as what we have seen in 2018 and 2019. And the reason maybe we have a little more rain in June compared to last 2 years. We have a ORe3542M, that's a new entry for just starting from 2020, so we don't know much about this variety yet. ORe3542M and CDC Norseman are two entry from Secan. They also been introduced at our site from 2018, and in last year the average for CDC Norseman was higher than Morgan, and CDC Norseman also had a higher beta-glucan compared to AC Morgan. These oat trials have been funded by Prairie Oat Grower Association and grain millers. We started these trials in 2016 with a 3-year commitment from POGA. But in 2018, after seeing our performance, they have extended these trials until 2023. So we want to thank you, Prairie Oat Grower Association and grain miller, for your continued support. So in 2020, for our flax regional variety trial, we have 5 entries here. These flax were seeded on May 11th, and on fall there was 90 pounds of actual N along with a blend of 26 pounds of actual N. In spring, with the seed we applied 58 pounds of 1152 and 100 pounds of 13042 a blend. This site was sprayed for herbicide control for curtail M on June 16th, and June 26th we had sprayed post to control grassy weed herbicide. Today we are having a virtual tour with Joseph Nichiro, and we will be talking about the regional variety trial for the barley. At this site we have 21 different varieties of barley. This site was seeded on May 12th. We had about 146 pounds of actual N and KPS along with according to the soil test. And this site was sprayed for curtail M and axial on June 16 for control of the weeds.
My name is Dr. Joseph Nichiro. I am a barley breeder out of the Field Crop Development Center in Lacombe. I'd like to introduce my fellow breeders at Lacombe who are not with me here. Our team leader is Dr. Flavio Capatini, who is also a barley breeder. The malting barley team leader is Dr. Patricia Jaskew. The forage barley breeder is Dr. Yadeta Kabera. This line outperforms all the Czech varieties in the crop trials. Its maturity is equivalent to CDC Osterson, that is in the range of around 97 days to 98 days. Also, one thing that we like about this variety, it has shown that it is very resistant. It is very resistant to a lot of diseases, so it has a good package of disease resistance. And also in terms of lodging, it is a good variety. It has good lodging resistance. This variety has been taken by FB Genetics. That is the company which has got the marketing rights. And its availability to the farmers will be in about 2 to 3 years down the road. I like to say a compliment to the research scientist who developed this variety. Her name is Dr. Patricia Skye. This is one of our new varieties. Its name is AB Toffil, and this variety is being marketed by Skye. It is a general purpose feed barley. It is a high yielding, good lodging resistance, and also a good disease package. This variety can be used by people who are looking for something that fits into the forage barley and also into the feed barley. I'm standing here on another variety called AB Advantage. This is one of our recent varieties. It is a feed barley that can produce very high amount of grain, and also it can fit into the forage barley market. So for the farmers or producers who are looking for something that they can use in the dairy industry, in the forage production, this is one of the new varieties that is available in the market, and the marketing company of this variety is Skye. This variety was developed out of the Field Crop Development Center in Lacombe. This is another new variety from our research team out of the Field Crop Development Center in Lacombe. Its name is AB Brunette. From the word brew, you can almost guess that this is a malting barley meant for the brewing industry. This variety was developed by Dr. Patricia Skye, and it has a lot of good attributes. It makes good malt, and also it's a high yielding variety, better than the Czechs. And another compliment to this variety is it has very good disease resistance. I would like to say that also it shows that it doesn't accumulate a lot of dawn in the grain, which is also a plus in the malting industry. AB Wrangler is another variety that has come out of the Field Crop Development Center in Lacombe. It was developed by Patricia Skye. It's a really kicker, I will say. This variety has got all the good attributes of disease resistance, good lodging resistance, and it is a really good yielder. It can be used as a grain barley and also as a forage barley. We have seen this variety that it is very stable. In other words, it can grow in different environments without really decreasing the yield. So I will say that this is something to look for in the market in a few years coming. It's a really winner, we think, that has come out of the Field Crop Development Center. We are very excited about this variety.
Okay, for the 2020 Cut the Crop Tour, today I have Jeremy Boychun from Alberta Wheat Commission. The trial here has been conducted with the support from Alberta Wheat Commission and Canadian Agriculture Partnership Program. This trial is replicated at 8 other different locations throughout Alberta. Please welcome Jeremy Boychun.
I'm here talking about the ultra early seeded plot trial. So this trial is just north of Westlock, and we are looking at 2 different varieties of wheat. and 3 different seeding rates and 2 different seeding times. This research is based off of Brian Barris research that looked at whether we could determine an increase in value for Alberta producers in seeding CWRS varieties a bit earlier than we typically do. So his research in general showed that what we're looking at with ultra early seeding is that seeding within the temperature range of 2 to 6 degrees Celsius showed better yield stability and better quality when it came to CWRS. So understanding how that research is going to impact producers regionally in the grow region is going to be important. So we have Brandon and Connery here seeded at 3 different seeding rates, 200 seeds per meter squared, 300 seeds per meter squared, and 400 seeds per meter squared. So in Brian Barris's research, what we saw is that the higher seeding rates actually proved to be better yield and stability at the end of the season. When you're putting these seeds in at that soil temperature, there's a bit more pressure, a bit more abiotic pressure on that seed. So having a stronger seed set at the beginning of the season is going to help for better establishment throughout the year. The 2 varieties that were picked for this were Brandon, which is a staple. It's grown throughout the province, so it was a good comparison variety to use. And then Connery's is a short season growing in popularity variety, so it was a good comparison to make. So this is year 2 of a 3-year trial, so we're quite excited to see the results of this extension demo in the northern part of the province and how Brian Barris's research relates in this part of the province. So I am standing in between the ultra early and non-ultra early plots, and you can see visually the ultra early, which was seeded on May 5th, is quite a bit more mature than what was seeded on May 20th. So the May 5th seeded plots were in around 8 degrees Celsius soil temperature when they were seeded. So this was the earliest that they could get onto this plot to put the ultra early plots in. And then the later seeded plot is when typically producers in the area would start moving. So that comparison, you can see that maturity level. And one of the things I mentioned earlier about ultra early seeding is the seeding rate. A higher seeding rate is going to be more beneficial, a more stable yield in the long term. But another thing to think about is seed treatment. So when you are seeding an ultra early plot, you are going into colder soil. It takes longer for that seed to emerge. So there's more stress on that seed, both biotic and abiotic. And some research in the past has looked at the benefits of seed treatment when it comes to abiotic stress, which would be cold stress from the soil and moisture stress, and what it actually found was that there was an increase in seedling vigor when you used a dual treatment seed treatment, so that is an insecticide and a fungicide. So with an ultra early seeded plot, you really want to think about doing a dual insecticide fungicide seed treatment because it's going to help give your plant stand the best jump at the beginning of the season. So I am here in the popular variety trial that Grow puts on every year. So in this trial this year, there are 4 different CPS varieties, 1 KWRS variety, and 9 different CWRS varieties. So this trial came about a few years ago when at a regional meeting, someone was interested in having popular varieties be compared in this region of the province, because the Alberta Seed Guide didn't always compare the varieties that were in demand and were of interest in this region. So Alberta Wheat Commission helped in part fund these trials, so producers in the area can get a better idea of what popular varieties in their area look like against other popular or new upcoming varieties. So very interesting research and very interesting information that's going to come from this trial. So I am here in for the malting barley variety trial, which was sponsored by in part by the Alberta Barley Commission. So this trial is looking at different barley varieties for malting. There's 8 different varieties in this trial. A lot of new varieties have come out recently, so it's good to get an understanding of how these varieties are going to grow and respond in your environment. So the fact that we have 8 different varieties in this trial is important for producers in the region. So it's good to come out and take a look at these trials and see how they're responding and see how they're coming along.
So if you need the results for these trials, follow us on Facebook, check our website for the results, and come to our annual meeting to get the full detailed annual report on the performance of these trials at the Westlock site.
So I am here in the winter wheat plot that Grow has just south of Westlock. We're looking at a few different varieties of winter wheat here, but I'm going to talk a little bit about how to integrate winter wheat into your rotation and some agronomic things to think about if you are going to integrate it into your rotation. So when you're thinking about putting winter wheat in the ground, the first thing you want to do is think about how can I make sure I plan for the best success. We've seen that when there's planning involved and there's intention earlier on in the season, that's when we're more likely to get winter wheat that actually hits the ground and hits the ground successfully. So what's involved with that planning is thinking about what that rotation looks like, and what you're really looking for when it comes to rotation. Canola is typically the best crop that you want to follow or have prior to winter wheat, and that's because of the stubble. So the tall stubble that you get with canola ends up providing an area for snow to be captured and protect that winter wheat crop throughout the winter and survive better into the spring. The next thing you want to think about is seeding timing. And in this region, you're looking for late August, early September. So maybe a little bit after August 15th into August 20th and prior to September 10th. You can push a little bit after that, but you run risk of winter kill. Some other things that you want to think about is seeding rate. Obviously, because there's a lot more stress that gets put on that seed, a higher seeding rate is going to be important. 400, maybe even 450 seeds per meter squared as a target is going to be where you want to be, and using a seed treatment to help protect against biotic and abiotic stresses. The other thing that you want to think about is your nitrogen applications. So using a enhanced efficiency fertilizer is going to be something that you want to think about. This plays a role in wet springs and making sure that you're not losing that nitrogen if you do apply it in the fall and then you get a wet spring. It's not being lost to leaching and to different environmental losses. The other thing you want to think about is seeding depth. You want to go in around 1 inch depth. If you go too deep, you're going to end up having trouble. So you want to go into that 1 inch depth range. And this helps make sure that you establish quickly, you establish well, and that crop's going to have a better chance moving through the winter. So there's a few benefits that come with seeding winter wheat. First is a potential earlier harvest. Because that crop is maturing earlier, you're able to get at it earlier and hopefully avoid some of those quality issues and fall challenges of harvest. The other thing is you're helping with weed control. So that crop establishes earlier in the spring because you've seeded in the fall, and it better competes with some of those weeds. And I've actually heard in some conditions, producers didn't have to spray a gumrinicide because there was enough control from competition that came from the winter wheat. So you could potentially decrease some of your input costs there, depending on the year and depending on what conditions are like. So there's a few benefits that come with growing winter wheat. First is an earlier harvest. Because you're seeding in the fall and it's maturing earlier, you can avoid some of those quality challenges and harvest challenges that come in the fall. The other thing is you're looking at a potentially higher yield. Typically you're getting a higher yield out of a winter wheat variety, so that could add more value to your farm there. The other thing you're looking at is increased weed control. So because that crop is established earlier, because you seeded it in the fall, you're getting more competition for those weeds that come up in the spring. So it's going to suppress those naturally. And the other thing you're looking at is mitigation of challenges that come with diseases and pests. Because it's maturing at a different time than spring wheat, you could potentially miss fusarium head blight challenges and wheat mid challenges as well. So it comes with a lot of benefits. I highly suggest talking to Grow to see what opportunities in terms of varieties may best suit where your end use and where your growing would be. And also make sure that you check out the winter wheat production manual. You can find that on the Alberta Wheat website, as well as a few other locations. And we are actually going to be working on updating that manual in the near future, so keep an eye out for an update.
Hi, I'm Brian, Grower Relations and Extension Manager with Alberta Wheat and Alberta Barley. Every year, the commissions make significant investments in agronomic research in Alberta. We partner with applied research associations like Grow to help extend that information to our members. For example, Grow has conducted an ESN urea trial, ultra-early seeding trial, and every year conducts regional varietal trials that are of interest to the members. We're happy to support Grow in extending information to their members through video tours, newsletters, their annual general meeting, and other activities where growers can get information that's relevant to their farm. I'm sorry we can't meet in person, but we're happy to participate remotely in the Cut the Crop tour. Have a good day.
For 2020 Cut the Crop Tour, I am here today at our Pulse site. In Pulse site, we have about 9 trials with support from Alberta Pulse Grower and other industry partner. This year, in 2020, we tried regional variety trial for yellow peas, green peas, and faba beans. Along with the regional variety trial with support from Alberta Pulse Grower, we had 2 demonstrations set up to look on the impact of putting phosphorus while with the seed and putting different type of inoculation with the seed on the overall health of pulse crop and the yield impact of using inoculation or double inoculation. For our regional variety trial, we have 12 yellow peas, 5 green peas, and 7 faba bean entries. Apart from that, we have 4 lentils and 4 soybean for a demo trial too. Because of excessive moisture in 2020, we lost trial for the first time since I have been working here from 5 years. Coming June, due to excessive moisture, after inspection, we decided to abandon the trial and not collect the data. So unfortunately, we will not have any data collection part on the yellow peas and green peas. However, our faba bean trial is doing great, and I hope we will have some good result for the region in the excessive moisture situation here. So please look for those results in our social media updates, and whenever we have our annual reports ready, you can call our office and get more information. I want to thank Alberta Pulse Grower Association for providing extra support with 2 demonstration trials for 2020. In those 2 trials, we were looking for using the phosphorus with seed and different type of inoculation along with the seed. Unfortunately, again with the situation in 2020, we have to abandon the result. However, we'll try again next year to seed those demos and get more information to the producer around this area. Thank you.
My name's Colette, for those of you that I haven't met yet. My specialty is, they call it pedigreed seed because, and I refer to it as any seed that doesn't come in a bag is my responsibility. So pulses, cereals, flax, but I'll start with our varieties. So this first one to the left is CS Jake. So it's a brand new variety from the U of A and Dean Spanner's program. And what it is, it's an early maturing wheat. The thing with Jake is we had 2 out of that program out of Dean Spanner's. So this hasn't been released yet. This year, this fall, will be its first release year. It competes in that category with Red Water and the Red Berry. It has an improved protein package on it. So it had really good protein. It also responds to growth regulator fairly well. We had it in our plots last year at Olds, which is some pretty rich soil. And what we did was we had 2 ranges, and the first range we left untreated, the second range we treated with manipulator, and both our track and our Jake shortened about this much. So, and it ended up about this tall, it is, you know, for the height, and then it went and stayed this height on our manipulator. So, but it strengthened the stem and it looked really good. So we also have some manipulator trials in Manitoba for these varieties that they're multi-rep, and so we'll have some really good data on how much it actually shortened the variety, because I know with these type of varieties a lot of people are using growth regulators. So Crossfield, it's this is its second year out. Last year with the dry conditions to start, and then we had wet and we had cool, Crossfield struggled a little bit as far as yield and standability. It is a semi-dwarf, so it has a semi-dwarf gene in it. Still a really nice variety. I think it got a really rough ride last year, and last year was its first release year. So all of a sudden you put it out in commercial release, and if you have the wrong set of conditions, and I think it had a myriad wrong set of conditions, and it just didn't yield, whereas I think last year's conditions, Penhold yielded fairly well and stood fairly well, so comparative. But Crossfield, long term, our data shows and our production field shows that it's about 5% higher yielding than Penhold. But if you have some really rich, heavy soils, and lodging is a huge major concern, then you really have to look at the variety that has the best stem strength, and Penhold has some better stem strength. But this one is still a really good variety. I think it just got a rough ride last year. So from Harpinder's program, improved protein on it, and it does yield, because I saw it in production fields for 5 years before last year. So still a very good variety, but it's tough when a guy has a bad experience the first year. This is our AAC Connect, and actually it's maturing quite quickly. It's moving along pretty quickly. So this is, I would say, a new malt barley. But let's not get it wrong, it's not a semi-dwarf barley. It's still a Canadian barley, and under you know, really, really good winds and rain, it'll still go down. So people think about, when they say better standability, their mind automatically goes to the semi-dwarf wheats. And other than some feed barleys that are starting to come into the market, we're not there in terms of malt barley yet. So it's better standability than those, the Metcalf and the Copeland, but it's not, we're not in the semi-dwarf wheat category yet, but it's still pretty good. And the yield potential is great on it. And the biggest thing with this is the maltsters and the brewers seem to really like it. It's taken off in the US, which also helps our pull. And Viterra's contracting for this up in the Peace this year, and they're moving some over into China now too. So we're starting to get some good acceptance with this, which is what matters with a malt barley. I can sing all the agronomic praises in the world, but if nobody's going to take it, then you know, it's no good for nothing but cow feed, right? So we're really happy that this is moving along, but these take a lot of work, at least 5 years before you start to get some, you know, over that hump. You're over that hump in 5-6 years, one way or the other. You're either leaving or you're going in the right direction. But this is our new variety. So this will be its first major release here. It comes out of our partnership with Lima Grain Cereals Research Canada. Really good yields, really good yield potential. I think the long-term data says about 5%, but we've seen spikes of 115%, so depending on the conditions and where it is. The cool thing about this variety, really good standability. The really cool thing about this variety is it has really good grain quality. The one thing I wanted to mention is some of these CPSs now look like hard reds. All right, so this is our CS Camden. So it's our milling oat. So Camden does have improved milling quality characteristics. So the millers, it's on the recommended variety list for milling. The thing about Camden and its #1 strength is its standability. It's AB Wrangler. You can see the standability is not as good on this one, and it's not meant to. We picked up this variety as a forage silage variety, so it is It's kind of a replacement for our cowboy. It's got great biomass and it's got some really good feed numbers on it. This is kind of, won't necessarily replace our Canmore, but it has got some great forage numbers, and the grain yield on it is extremely good, and it tillers. So you can see it's a really thick crop and a really thick canopy, so lots of biomass, lots of stuff. In the drier areas out east, the yield gap between Austinson and this one gets even better because a taller variety under drier conditions will give you a better yield gap. This is what you'll get out of it, right, under heavy conditions, but it is a thick crop. So not this year, not this fall, but the following fall was Wrangler will be available, and to seed growers, of course, will have foundation seed this year. So basically, this is our AAC Comfort. This is a green pea. Doesn't have as much, green pea acres aren't as large as the yellow pea. The Comfort has a larger pea. It's about saffron size, so it's about that 250. But it's got good seed coat breakage. It pods usually, so both the Carvers and the Comforts are from Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada, and you would typically, they'd be about here. So, and the same with the Carvers. And I find that they came out of the same program. They knit very well together. The big difference between these greens is this is a mid to late. The Carvers are early, and they're our yellow pea. You guys are probably familiar with them. They're a wonderful yellow pea. A lot of people that used to grow meadows really like the Carvers. Really, really happy with this variety. For an early maturing variety, they can yield. So we're really happy with them. Good seed size, anywhere from that 220 to 240 type of deal. They can vary, but the seed coat breakage on them is very good. So they don't break apart. A really solid pea. So the only kink is if they are about a protein bump lower than some of these high protein peas that are coming out. So if you're after a specific market where guys are after high protein peas, but into the main market, Carvers are, and I think they make up with it on yield too, so, and quality. All right.
We're excited this year for 2020 to have the product, the label expansion to cover not only wheat, but also barley and oats. So this year, the market is really taken off. Growing conditions this year are fantastic for the most part. So things are really prime for growth regulators this year. Behind us is a plot that was sprayed about 30, growth stage 37 to 39, so just at that flag leaf stage. So ideal timing is anywhere from that 5 to 6 leaf stage all the way up to flag leaf. Benefits is fairly significant throughout that timing. You can go a little bit earlier, but the efficacy does start to go down a little bit. But the idea being is you put the manipulator on just as that plant is starting to stretch, just as it's starting to produce the gibberellic acid. So that'll suppress that gibberellic acid production, which causes that plant to elongate. So it suppresses the growth a little bit, but by doing so, not only shortens the plant, sometimes it's variable depending on variety on how much it shortens it, but it can be keep it standing if there's excess fertility to it, or if you're just worried about lodging to begin with. But it's not only a lodging tool, it's also great for harvest management. So if you're able to combine a little bit faster with a little bit less horsepower, with the harvest conditions we've had the last few years, the condensed window that we've had, if you're able to pound off a few extra acres every day, there's significant value in manipulator in that as well. Not just the standability, but also the harvestability of the product. It is great to see this year. We're seeing very effective results this year. Just because the ample moisture, we are seeing quite a suppression in height. In the plot behind us, I'm guessing it's probably in that 4-inch mark, just at a quick look, but that's pretty much quite standard that what we're seeing this year. Quite often we do see a bit of a yield bump as well. We don't know if that's really just the excess fertility sometimes, or if it's just the actual manipulator working on it as well.